Hello everyone. Today I have my Winchester Model 1200 12 gauge shotgun, and I found several old 12 gauge shells over the years, and I want to see if they fire, just as a test to see if 12 gauge shells that have been underwater and been in bad conditions can still fire. Now, to start with, I've got as a test round, this is a perfectly good 12 gauge shell, ounce and an eighth of 7.5 shot, and I'm going to shoot one of these water jugs I've got sitting down there, so we can see how it functions. In case one of these other shells fires but is really meek, you'll be able to see the difference. Okay, so that's how they're supposed to function. This shell I found out on the road. It looked like it'd been there for some time. It's in kind of poor shape. So we'll see if it fires. Just fine. This one I also found out while I was hunting. I think it was from pheasant season the year before. It's really the only thing people hunt in that area, and it's a 4-shot shell. So I think that's what it was used for. I think it was just dropped the year before. So I think it sat out on the ground all year long, to the best of my knowledge. Worked fine and kicked considerably more than those other two. Okay, now this is where it gets interesting. This was in the basement of an old abandoned house that had been abandoned for quite a few years. And so are the other two shells I have to show you today. And they were hooked to a board, like with wire, to show an example of different types of shells. And this was hooked to the board. Well, actually, one of them wasn't in the basement. I said both of them were. The next two are both in that basement. Now, my dad and I came to this house one time and noticed the basement had been flooded. The water tank thing had ruptured and filled the basement, with a couple feet of water. And, the windows are knocked out and stuff in the basement. So it's rained in there before, but we know at least at one time this was completely submerged in water. And we're talking like this house has been abandoned for like 10 years, and this was under a bunch of other stuff. This had been in that basement for at least 10 years and had been submerged in water completely, at least once, to my knowledge. I cleaned it up. It was all rusty. I cleaned it up with steel wool, just to make sure it would cycle in the gun. There was rust and stuff all caked around the brass. Dang, that surprised me. I thought that one would go. And this was another one. That was the example of a high brass 12 gauge shell on that board. And this was the example of low brass. And this one was in even worse shape. I don't know if you can really tell in the light, but there's a lot of pitting and stuff around here. And I cleaned this a lot I scraped it with a screwdriver to get the heavy pitting and stuff off of this brass, and then cleaned it with steel wool. And actually washed it off in the sink because it was caked with mud and stuff before I did all that. So, and this was also completely submerged in water at one time because of that flood they had in that basement, and had been in terrible conditions, laying on the floor. The board was on the bottom, and the shells were resting on the board, wired to it, but under some clothes and stuff, so it was all wet and gross. See if it fires. Seemed to even have good power. It kicked quite a bit for a low brass shell. That was perfectly good. Now this is one that I also found in that basement, but it was not hooked to the board. And I decided not to clean this one. You can see that it's rusty. and it's caked with old, you know, dirt and stuff. I don't know if you can even see it in the picture. This is a red shotgun shell. The plastic is a red in color, and you can see a little bit of it, or I can. But it looks gray because it's covered in dirt and rust all over the brass. And this one, again, was completely submerged in water. I know it was. And it had been in that basement for about 10 years. You know, you can tell on the primer there, you can see all that corrosion and stuff. I didn't clean this one, just to see. Now, I'm just gonna put it straight into the chamber because I don't want to, you know, try to cycle it because it's dirty. That's why I saved it for last. It's definitely the dirtiest one. Yeah, I had to shove it in there with my finger. Ooh. I don't know. Let's see if it fires. The gun wouldn't even shut properly. Okay. Couldn't get the action to close properly, so I'm gonna try it one more time. Shove it down in there. Okay. Try that again. Okay. Now it's in there, I think. See if it fires. I can't believe that fired. Oh man. Oh. If I can get the action open. I cannot get the action open with all that mud and stuff. Mud and rust caked on it. It's locked up the action because when it fired, it swelled a little bit more, and it was already pretty tight in the chamber. So it went ahead and swelled some more, and now I can't get my action open. Before I could force it open, and now it won't let me force it open. So I'm gonna have to take the barrel off to get it out. But it's just something that I thought would be interesting, and it was interesting. We know that 10-year-old shotgun shells that have at one point been completely submerged in water and have been kept in a damp basement or left laying out in the field somewhere for a year, you know, they'll probably fire. And this one, just like the other two that I cleaned, if I would have cleaned it, it would have cycled fine in the gun as well. Once they dry out, they fire anyway. I haven't tried one that was actually damp, but apparently the powder had had time to dry, and unless it was just sealed good enough with the wad and everything to where, I mean, surely some water got in where the shot was, but maybe no water had leached past the wad if it was tight enough into the powder. And there was no actual breach in the brass. So, but I thought that was a pretty interesting experiment. Take it easy. Bye.